call the 6 p.m. legislative session of the Spokane City Council to order. Alan Skelton. And so we can't, Mr. Skelton, we can't talk about the food truck ordinances at this part. Okay, just making sure.
Yes, I've done this once before. Okay. Thank you, though. Good evening, City Council members. My name is Alan Skelton. I'm a representative of the Greater Spokane Food Truck Association, and I'm here because something we need to talk about. The parking regulations enforcement has become a problem for the food trucks recently, and this needs to be addressed. The two major points that we would like to address are the selective enforcement of the meter time regulations and the selective distribution of meter bags. Let's all be honest. Everybody in this city uses the meters, and when they do, they feed them. And we are kind of being persecuted about that in our own right. The only thing the city really ever does is strictly enforce the loading zone spaces, and they do that with good reason. As of last Friday, the city will now be enforcing the allotted time meter, but it seems to only going to enforce the matter in the respect of food trucks and not everybody else in the city. We do not see them actively pursuing all the employees of downtown businesses that feed the meters. The city cannot be prejudiced against just food trucks, and it definitely cannot pick and choose the aspects of rules to enforce just against one little group. And this brings me to my second and last point that could alleviate the problem altogether. The food trucks that operate in metered spots want to be treated just like any other business within downtown. And we request that we get our meter bags back. According to the street departments, food trucks cannot acquire the meter bag because we do not meet the 30-minute expedited rule to receive those bags. This rule seems to be subjective and only enforced against food trucks. Just two examples of many businesses or organizations that use such meter bags way beyond the 30-minute expedited rule are the Hoop Fest truck. They park in front of the Bake American building. They don't do anything expeditively. They just park there because they can, and they have the ability to have a meter bag. Another example would be the TW Telecom trucks that are in front of the Chase building. Their main hub is in the Chase building, but they don't do anything expeditively within the Chase building. So they take up between 1 to 4 spots in a day for the Chase building, but we cannot receive meter bags. So this is a troubling and disturbing theme for the Spokane Street Department and the parking enforcements in regards to a small group of hardworking individuals around this city. Finally, all the food trucks want is to be treated like every other commercial business within this city, and not be persecuted just because we're pioneers within this. We've given you our problem. We've given you a solution. All we ask is you guys do the right and fair thing and give us back our meter bags. And I thank you for your time.
With that, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew Warlock from the Planning Department, who has done an extensive year-long process, and he'll give a little presentation, and then we're going to go on to the public testimony, and then we'll discuss it and vote.
Thank you, Council President. My name is Andrew Warlock. I'm an Associate Planner with the Planning and Development Services Department. I was a little bit tempted there to click on the Staying Alive link again and maybe practice some CPR on this ordinance. I do have to say I'm actually a little bit surprised and surprised about the, I went and checked the sign-in sheet, and really I wouldn't be here today if I thought I would be standing in front of an audience that had the concerns that they have about this ordinance. This ordinance is and always has been about what we can do as a city to better support the mobile food industry. And so I'm going to go through my presentation, and I just want you to keep that in mind as you listen to the testimony and the comments I've made. Obviously, from the clerk's description, there's a lot of little parts to this ordinance. It's really two ordinances. One deals with the licensing requirements, chapters 1, 4, 8, and mostly in chapter 10, and then also the land use codes in chapters 17C. So a little bit of background. We started this project about a year and a half ago. I was pleased to get the assignment to lead the project team, and really the assignment was, what can we do to better support the growing and emerging mobile food industry in Spokane? So we started out with a project team, interdepartmental project team. We had members from our building department, licensing, fire department, taxes and licensing, the Spokane County Health District, Downtown Spokane Partnership, the planning department. And we started by looking at how do we regulate mobile food vending in the city of Spokane today? And what do other communities where we see a growing and emerging mobile food industry do to support that industry and address the issues that arise with vending on the street? So we started with an outreach program. We had put together a white paper that kind of outlined our findings regarding the mobile food industry. We had a public open house. We had conversations with members of the mobile food vendor industry, and we dispersed information via the web. We took that and kind of formulated a framework that we thought made sense for the city of Spokane. Part of it was some land use changes, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, and part of it was changes to the permitting process. Oops. So the context for a mobile food industry and why would we do this in the first place? We think there's a lot of strong benefits from having mobile food vending, especially in areas like the downtown and our centers and corridors. Kind of speaks for itself, but it helps to provide low-cost, culturally diverse food options. It attracts foot traffic to commercial districts, creates a more vibrant retail climate. It's a good low-cost entry into the restaurant business, and it's a valuable economic point of entry for immigrant and refugee communities. Locally, there's about 90 some food vendors that are permitted by Spokane County, that's health district, that's countywide. But of those, only a handful really operate in the downtown core on a regular basis. And that's what we are trying to look into. Why is that? What can we do to bring more food vendors downtown? So before I go farther, really want to make sure that we understand the mobile food vendor industry is a very diverse industry. It's everything from the push carts, the hot dog carts on the city sidewalk, to the trailers, to full-on converted trucks with restaurant quality kitchens, and everything else in between. It's very diverse. There's a lot of different modes and business models that these entrepreneurs take. So what we found, currently we have what we call the itinerant vendor permit. This process for mobile food vendors does not work, and the main reason for that is because it was written for those vendors that vend throughout neighborhoods, the kind of the door-to-door salesman, or maybe another example is an ice cream truck that drives through neighborhoods and really relies on moving from point to point to make its business model work. The itinerant vendor process basically has what we call the 10-minute rule, and it says you can't stay, or you should refrain from staying in any one place more than 10 minutes. So the ice cream man, he can't go find some great corner and just stay there. He needs to keep moving, and that's true of all itinerant vendors. The other thing that we heard is that the process is confusing. There's a lot of different agencies that mobile food vendors need to go through. There's the Department of Labor and Industries, the Health District, the business licensing, the state business registration. And there is no real good source, localized source of information on how to go through this process. So kind of the main theme that we heard from the mobile food vendors as we're developing our framework was that they wanted a permitting system that was easy, affordable, and flexible. Flexible to meet their business needs, to allow them to kind of respond to market conditions as they change. What we heard from the other side, from the brick and mortar restaurant industry and the downtown property owners, is that they want a level playing field. They want to make sure that mobile food vending is on the same level playing field as they are. On the land use framework, today most mobile food vendors are allowed kind of generically as a retail or service use in those zones that allow those uses, and what we're proposing is to make them an outright specifically permitted use, a limited permitted use in all the commercial, industrial, downtown, and center and corridor zones, and including the office and office retail zones. So this map illustrates where those areas are distributed throughout the city. The yellow is all the commercial and industrial zones, so you'll see the West Plains area, mostly industrial zoning, the downtown core, the lower South Hill with its office retail zoning is included, and the light blue is the office zoning. And so it's a pretty wide distribution throughout the city. For the licensing framework, what we're proposing is that instead of the itinerant vendor permit, most mobile food vendors would have this new type of permit, a mobile food vendor permit. The permit would be issued by the Planning and Development Services Department as opposed to the Taxes and Licenses Department, which currently issues the itinerant vendor permit. The reviews would take place in most cases over the counter. It'd be just simple administrative review of the application. Downtown vendors would be included in the downtown parking and business improvement area, so there would be an assessment for those vendors. This gets to the issue of the level playing field. As you may know, all property owners and tenants within the downtown are subject to the business improvement assessment. And we created 3 categories of vending. Those vendors that vend from or onto public rights-of-way, those that vend from or onto private parcels, and those that would seek to vend in city parks. Oops. So vending on public streets is probably the one that you would hear the most comments about, and I think we heard some comments about that in the public forum earlier today. The system that we've devised, number one, would require the consent of the adjoining property owner. So if you find a location with an existing property or business owner, you would go and talk to them about your desire to vend in front of their business or in front of their property and establish that relationship. And that would be up front of getting the permit from the city. You would need to comply with all the parking rules, and that includes the restrictions on metered parking. It would not be an exclusive right, and it could be revoked for cause. Again, kind of on the level playing field, we heard from the Restaurant Association about the fairness of mobile food vendors coming in, the perceived fairness, and essentially stealing away their business. And so we talked about a spacing requirement. Now that spacing requirement, 75 feet from the front door of an existing restaurant, may be waived by that restaurant owner. So if they don't perceive the risk to their business, they can waive that requirement. The mobile food unit would need to be fully self-contained, and they must agree to comply with a request to relocate by an official, city official. So that's vending on public streets. Vending on private property, similarly, we would also ask that they provide the written consent of the private property owner whose property they're parking on. I think that makes sense. No, there would be no spacing from existing restaurants, and the vendor would have to follow all of the zoning development standards, except in those cases where they're vending from an existing parking lot. The unit is and remains a wheeled vehicle, so it remains a mobile food vending unit. It's self-contained, and it's not used for drive-through vending. Vending on parks property. So under today's requirement, you need the City of Spokane Parks Department's approval to vend from a city park. We're not changing that, but we're adding the requirement that it also include their approval when you're vending on a street adjacent to or across the street from a city park. There are some special.
Can I ask just a quick question on that? So what kind of circumstance would that permission not be given on an adjacent street? I'm just curious on that last slide.
Under what circumstance would it not be given?
Yeah, if you flip backwards just one slide, it says that without the express written consent of the Parks Department. So let's just say I'm a mobile food vendor and I want to set up across the street from a park, and I have to have the Parks Department's written agreement to let me do so. Under what circumstances wouldn't they give that agreement? I'm just wondering, what's the yes/no process there?
You know, Councilman Salvatore, I can't really speak for what the Parks Department criteria is for granting it. I can tell you the reason that we expanded it to include not just the park property itself, but the street adjacent to, is because of the circumstances where we have an existing park, and maybe it is the City Parks Board policy not to allow mobile food vending on the park property, and we have the vendors locating across the street, and sometimes those are, you know, like Mission Park might be a good example of a busy street where you don't want to encourage the vending across the street, and it's kind of the loophole, and so it's kind of closing that loophole.
Okay, thank you.
You know, I wasn't privy to the conversations with, I'm sure this is probably Samsung who put this forward, but we do have actually codified restrictions on non-licensed vendors in our parks as it pertains. That's one of the things the work group kind of noticed and maybe recommended going forward, making some modifications to that. But I'm sure this is partially from safety, partially from the code, and some of that will be looked at in the coming years.
Just so I'm clear, though, so what you're kind of saying is that we're not likely to give that permission by the way that's worded without the express written consent. Chances are, for the very reasons that you're talking about, where if you're a mobile food vendor, you probably won't be setting up across the street from parks?
Not necessarily. I mean, we've done some things in the past, so it just depends on the event.
Yeah.
So if you have something like Pig Out in the Park who's paying for the facility, you can't have some mobile vendor popping up right next to them and potentially pirating off the current event that someone's paying for.
Okay, thanks.
And that's correct. Sam Song, a member of the City Parks Department, was on the committee as well. Excuse me. So the special, special exemptions deal with events such as special events. Maybe it's a wedding or a graduation or some sort of a neighborhood block party where mobile food vendors are invited to the event. So they would be given an exemption from the requirements. Vendors who operate for 6 days or less annually. We have some vendors that come into the city for specific events. Maybe a Pig Out in the Park is one of those events. And they're here for a short period of time and then go back. We want to continue to encourage that and not subject them to the full permitting requirements. Mobile caterers or those caterers that go to a specific place of business to provide services to the occupants of the business. And then we think there's probably some mobile food vendors that, such as the push carts, that would choose to continue to operate under the terms of the itinerant vendor permit. So we're providing that exemption as well. I want to talk a little bit about the permit fee considerations. I think there's I'm sure you're going to hear some testimony about the fees. What we've proposed is an annual permit fee of $40 plus $10 for each fixed vending location. On the renewal basis, you would pay the $40, but the $10 that you'd already paid for the locations, unless you're changing a location or adding a new location. And this really goes back to the city's administration's philosophy on the cost recovery. So the user groups that benefit from the services that the city provides should be responsible for paying at least part of those costs. Under today's itinerant vendor system, there is no fee, but we don't review a fixed location. It's really you ask for it, you get it kind of situation. And then comparing it to other fees that the city has, for example, the annual sidewalk fee. So if you're a restaurant downtown, you want to have a sidewalk encroachment with a cafe, the fee is $250 per year. And I'm not raising this to try and justify the fee, but I'm raising it as an example to say that we do have other fees that we charge other user groups for the privilege of using city right-of-way to conduct business. So that is my presentation. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Councilman Snyder, and then I do want to get to...
Can you address the parking situation downtown? Like, how does the meters work right now? Or, well, actually, I guess I don't care about right now. I want to know how it works with this. Any difference?
So this does not change or address any of the parking requirements in terms of the metered parking. As I understand it, metered parking, if the meter's a 2-hour meter, then that's all you can park at that meter without moving first. You can't continue to put in, 2 hours worth of money to continue to pay the meter.
So that means that you couldn't be there through lunch or dinner if you were a mobile truck. You could kind of pick one. Is that basically it?
Correct. If you were at a 2-hour meter, you'd have 2 hours to.
So what do you know about the bags and how that works?
The meter bags, as I understand it, are really for, I think it was explained before, for those kind of expeditious, maybe it's a contractor that needs to get in and out of a business downtown. That would be an appropriate use of a meter bag. Mobile caterers may have circumstances to be issued a meter bag. But really, to operate on an ongoing business, a commercial enterprise on a city street using a meter bag is really beyond the intent of that program. So we've been looking at that. I mean, it's a great issue is how do you address the circumstances with downtown metered parking at 2 hours? Are there locations where mobile food vendors can set up? Maybe it takes them an hour. We've been involved with 3 of the food truck rallies downtown, and what we've really learned from that is that the mobile food vendors need enough time to set up, enough time to serve, for example, during the lunch hour, and then enough time to shut down and go to the next location. And that's really more than the 2 hours that the meters provides. But that's what we have today. And so we've been looking at other options for can we create locations where it's appropriate to vend without those restrictions. The first thing that comes to mind, are there parking lots, surface parking lots like they use in Portland, where mobile food vendors can set up mobile food vending courts and operate there irregardless of the parking conditions on the adjoining streets? Are there places that the city controls? Maybe Wall Street is one of those examples where we can allow vending to occur on a more regular and prolonged basis. And so those are the things that we're looking at. With this ordinance, we didn't really want to get into the parking policy, so understand that that it is a bit of a concern for some of the vendors. I think there are other options, though, that we'll continue to look for.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to public test, one more.
Yeah, one question. Mr. Warlock, at the beginning of the presentation, there were 3 bullets that I saw up there on the screen, and this whole process was supposed to be making it affordable and flexible, and what was the third bullet?
I'd have to look back. Flexible, affordable, and say consistent. Yeah, I think it was easy. Easy, affordable, and flexible.
Is this new ordinance easy, affordable, and flexible, sir?
We thought it was. We
Okay.
think it is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. All right, public testimony. I have people that signed up yes testifying, and then how they, instead of just down here supporting it. But I'm going to read each person's name. And so the first person I do have signed up is testifying yes, which is S. Jolie Forel. I'm sorry, I might never get that right, and I apologize.
No one ever does on the first try, so no worries. Thank you, Council President and Council members. My name is Joy Lee Farrell. I am the co-owner of Couple of Chefs Catering and Food Truck here in Spokane since 2011. I am also the president of the newly founded Greater Spokane Food Truck Association, which is an association of 13 of your local food trucks. Our goal and the reason why the association was created is to further grow and promote the local food truck culture in our city. My business partner and I, Alan, who spoke earlier, have attended last year's planning committee meetings regarding the mobile vending ordinances, as well as knowing firsthand what it means to own and operate a food truck in the city of Spokane. Speaking on behalf of the Greater Spokane Food Truck Association, we are all very glad to see that the city of Spokane is being proactive and food truck friendly. However, at this time, we as an association do not feel as if the ordinances as they stand and are being proposed are ready to be passed. Food trucks already abide by the standards that our brick and mortar counterparts abide by. The Spokane Regional Health Department certifies us all, and we all have our City of Spokane business licenses to operate in the city. It is unfair that we should be charged additional fees just because we have decided to be mobile versus investing a lot more money into opening a brick and mortar. The additional fees per location also inhibits our ability to be mobile if we need to have paid permission from the city. Andrew opened up his presentation with the pretense of encouraging growth of mobile vendors and entrepreneurs in the city of Spokane. Unfortunately, there are very specific details in the ordinance that presented that constrict and confine the operations in operation area of it as a mobile food vendor. Food trucks are not asking for special treatment. We simply ask to be treated fairly, especially since we are part of your local restaurant scene. We just happen to be on wheels. As president of the Greater Spokane Food Truck Association, I am more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Actually, I do have a question.
All right, fair enough.
Is your objections more specifically as to the fee cost? Or is there more than that, or is it just the fee?
There are things about the fees that we do object to, and there are some other rules regarding permission from buildings, who owns the street, who owns the meters, to say that we can't park in front of there. If it's the city owns the meters or the parking, then why can't we park there? Do we really have to have permission from the city or from the building owners?
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Warlock, just real quick. If I'm a restaurant right now, I buy a business license, right? I go in, I come in, I get a city business license online. Now, are we having them, a mobile food truck, get 2 business licenses or 1?
No, it's still one business license. The mobile food vending permit is really the permission to operate a mobile food vendor within the city. It's a separate,
So they're getting a business license and then a permit on top of it. But if I'm in a fixed location, I'm just getting a business license. And so it's a permit to act as a mobile food unit on top of the regular business license. I just want to be clear about,
well, if you're in a fixed location, the chances are you probably went through an entire permitting process, including the
front end.
remodeling process and the inspections, all those processes.
okay. Thank you. All right, next up, I have Alan Skelton signed up, but not to speak. And then I have Mr. Camargo. Okay, I didn't want to mispronounce another name. I just get myself into trouble every week. Clay Cernon. God, you guys just got to let it go. Not to speak, though, right? No, thank you. Okay. Randy McGlenn. Yes, sir. Yeah, you see, I pronounced that one right. Tom Edlin. You got it right. All right. Chris Casa. Okay. Ellen Casa. All right. Kim Bennett, here but not speaking as well. Michael Pickens. Yes. I have you testify. Mr. Pickens. Yes.
Good evening, council members. My name is Michael Pickens. I'm a resident of the 3rd District here in Spokane. I'm a legislative analyst. I'm also a friend of the Spokane food trucks and a food truck connoisseur, and an advocate for liberty and justice for all, especially in this case, economic liberty. First, I want to thank Mr. Warlock for putting together a start to a good ordinance. It's a start. By a show of hands, how many council members have actually read the ordinance? Okay, so you've all read the ordinance? Okay. We've read through the proposed ordinance line by line and have numerous concerns. There are provisions in this ordinance that have already been overturned in other cities through the court systems. We've brought a report that outlines examples of good laws that allow food trucks, the food truck industry to flourish while also protecting public health and safety, which I think is an objective that we're all concerned about. This report draws on extensive research of food truck laws nationwide in over 50 major cities, as well as litigation on street vending cases, discussion with food truck operators, associations, and government officials. We are recommending that you defer this ordinance back to committee and work session to fix the ordinance. It is better to pass a good ordinance the first time than to force us to fix the ordinance after the bad ordinance is passed. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pickens. Kelsey Bates. Sabrina Sorger. Josh Stringfellow. And Marla.
Thank you, Council President and Council members. I'm Marla Lindenberg, the Vice President of the Downtown Spokane Partnership. Appreciate all the comments here tonight. The Downtown Spokane Partnership welcomes the food trucks and the mobile vendors as an important part of Spokane's urban fabric to achieve an active street environment. A growing trend nationally, food truck accessibility for downtown workers, visitors, and residents adds to the vibrancy and enjoyment of our city. The DSP is both supportive and proactive in promoting and working with the food truck owners and the Food Truck Association through the various events. This includes devoting one of our staff to assist with logistics and event permits. We feel that the year-long ordinance review process was balanced, utilizing best practices from other cities, input from all sides of the matter, and reflects input received from the downtown business and properties that we represent in order to create a level playing field for both mobile vendors and the bricks and mortar businesses alike. We vetted the information on the project through our DSP and bid boards, promoted the public open house to encourage participation, and received input from the businesses and properties. We feel the final policy and fee structure is fair to the food truck vendors as well as to the brick and mortar businesses. The fees are less than what the larger cities charge. For example, Seattle's fees start at $344 annually. It is also less than what the brick and mortar restaurant pays for a sidewalk cafe permit, which is $250 annually to utilize the sidewalk in front of their space. The $90 bid assessment fees provides participating mobile vendors with the access to all the services provided by the Downtown Spokane Partnership. Not only does that include the time and efforts of our clean team and security ambassadors, but weekly promotion of the truck locations and inclusion in special events promotions such as First Friday and the food truck rallies. Our team is also there to assist vendors as they work with the community organizations and events. This is the minimum bid assessment fee for any business or property within our 80-block district that they pay. In comparison, an average restaurant in the downtown core pays about $500 annually for the same benefits. We're excited to get the simpler, predictable, yet flexible system in place and be able to promote the food trucks and additional food truck rallies that we've done recently in partnership with the city and the Food Truck Association. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Valder, I have you signed up.
fast foods. Mobile food wagons are the largest growing business in America today. One only has to watch the sharks. Now, if you want to, the way this is written, if you want to open up a food truck in front of one of the restaurants, you're going to be 75 feet. But yet, Subway can go into our restaurants. I'm talking about the city bus station. You can have a Subway with pizza and then pizza right upstairs. A lot of places don't allow that. Now, if these restaurants want so badly to take away the livelihood of people who put a lot of money into those trucks, then they can go out and get the $250 license that they now have. If they don't, then I should have a right, public right-of-way, to put a food cart there. Period. A lot of people don't know is that the state just passed an ordinance that you can hook up a mobile food wagon at any of the parking rights. Good location. Some cities, in the park, you got 75 feet for restaurants, but the park, oh man, you know, if you got the pig out or you got this and that, why don't they have a food cart alley in our park? Let Spokane be known for its good food. Because quite frankly, I would much rather eat at some of these vendors that I have than a lot of the restaurants that I know what the kitchen is like. These, at least you can see it. And then you have the vendors that go to pig out. Well, they don't need all the heavy equipment that they have. The fryolator, if you got a fryolator, you need a exhaust system, but you can have one downtown outside without one. So there's a lot of options for these businesses if they want more business. They pay their license, and we pay our taxes. I would love to see this park over here and the one over here with hot dog carts. We had one out here. He fed the city employees, and I believe you all liked it. When you have a set up at pig out, let me get back to what I was saying, you can have 3 rubbish cans, clean ones, to wash your utensils in. All these ones that are just 6 day, you can have that. But they have to go get stainless steel sinks. They have to get a thing for anything with fire, and it might be even worse now. And they're very expensive. And then on top of it, they're entrepreneurs. Fastest growing business in America. Listen to them.
Thank you, Mr. Valder. Jonathan Martinez, I have you signed up but not speaking. And Anthony Epifano, signed up but not speaking. And Mr. McGrath. Nobody else is signed up, so if somebody else wanted to speak up while Mr. McGrath speaks, come on up. Otherwise, we're calling it.
Council President, Council Members, George McGrath. Mr. Warlock's presentation was rather interesting, particularly the part about the inexpensive way to get into the food business. I don't know if he's ever checked on what it costs a person or a business to put together a food truck where they're following all of the rules and regulations. But folks, you're looking at 6 figures. You're looking at 100,000 plus to put a truck together that meets all of the requirements for a food vending truck. Now, I also have a tough time trying to figure out why the park department has the right to block the other side of the street if they don't want a food vendor truck over there. You know, since when did we give the park department that kind of authority in the city of Spokane? It's okay to have pig out at the park, and we've got a lot of vendors there and a lot of fabulous food there. But if some other time during the week or during the summer, a food vendor wants to have a truck set up alongside the park. Can't do that. Well, can I go across the street? No, you can't do that either because we're the park department. Oh, excuse me, Adolf, we didn't realize that you were the dictator, you know? The other thing that has bothered me for a long time, and that is the famous cost recovery. Every one of us, every business pays taxes in this town. We pay the salaries of these employees of the city. But what are we going to do? We're going to charge them $50, $40 for a license, and $10 per place that they want to go, because that's what it's going to cost the city to have this work done. What in the world is their job supposed to be? This has bothered me for a long time. Our taxes get us nothing. All it does is give the city of Spokane more money to waste, more money to spend, and more ways to figure out, oh, we're going to get our costs recovered because we're going to charge the people or the business for the time needed to prepare the documents or whatever in the world it is. So I think that you should send this one back to the incinerator first of all, and then set a group down who really understands this business and have them put together a decent resolution. Thank you.
Mr. McGrath? No outbursts, because then people start booing you and you get sad and it's all bad. Sir, I saw you come forward. If you'd like to speak, you got 3 minutes. You just got, were you one of my signed up?
I was one of the last names.
Okay, so just state your name for the record.
Hi there, my name is Clay Cerna. I'm the general manager of Dawn of the Donut. Some of you may have heard of us. I just wanted to add briefly to the testimony here because I do represent, is this better? All right, thank you. I just wanted to add briefly to the testimony here because I do represent a brick and mortar establishment and a food truck as well. So, and there are several details we could get involved with the particular ordinance that Mr. Warlock has put together, which has been done fabulously, by the way. He's been a wonderful ally to have here with the city of Spokane. And just the biggest thing that I wanted to throw out there is just to add to the deferral to more revision before we bring it before the city council for a vote again. That's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And before we start talking, I'm looking for a motion to defer this for 1 month and then looking for a partner to meet with everybody, because I don't want to pass something that has people upset, but I want to set the expectation that I'd be willing to defer it for a month if we can look at what we can tweak, because right now the current itinerant vendor ordinance is not set to meet food trucks because it has a 10-minute rule. So we have to do something to get something in place. So it'd be the expectation that we would work through the issues.
Council President, I would work with you on that committee, and especially I'd like to
make the motion. I'm not allowed to.
I would like to make a motion that we defer it for 1 month and have a small work group meet with the committee again to address some of these issues. I have some questions about adjacent parking and what the reasoning was in the Parks Department as the Parks liaison. I'd like to have a clear understanding of that, so I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Councilman Salvatore?
Discussion of that motion. So I'm not necessarily opposed to deferring it. I think we all have some questions about this. But while we have Andrew here and while we have the folks from the mobile truck industry here, I just want to make sure that I understand the fee part of this and the objection to the fee side of it, because it sounds like that's a big part of it. And I realize that there's a city business license that must be obtained, whether you're a mobile truck or a restaurant, brick and mortar, so that's level so far. But if you're a mobile vendor, you have to pay a $40 setup fee plus $10 location. So that's $50 that a brick and mortar place doesn't have to do. And then you're being asked to now pay the bid assessment of $90 a year, which the brick and mortar does have to do, but which you have not had to do in the past. So I understand that's a new $90 to your industry. So that's $140. The $40 setup, the $10 per location, and a $90 bid fee, that's $150, if my math is correct.
It's the $10 per location.
Per location, but for each truck, right? I mean, you can't put a truck in 2 locations at once, right?
But if I operate 5 days a week and I have 5 different locations.
Can you come up to the...
But I do want to dig in what other brick and mortar businesses are paying on their permits too.
It's $10 per location that we park at. So if I operate my food truck 5 days a week, for lunch, I have to pay that $40 application fee and then $10 per location. So if I open up my food truck for lunch and for dinner service, that's potentially 10 different locations during the work week, that's $100.
Oh, so maybe I'm confused. I was thinking that the food truck might go to the same, like you might stake out whatever, the
Right.
corner of X and
Not
X.
all food trucks are like that. Our food truck, we operate Tuesday through Friday for lunch and then dinner at 2 different locations, Thursday and Friday. So the whole point of being a mobile food truck is to be mobile and to move around. And so we don't all just stay in one static location.
Okay, I'm glad I asked, because I wasn't thinking of that angle, I guess, necessarily, because what I was thinking of was, so since you're on, this is for the public right-of-way, not the private parking lot side of it, and if it was just $140, the $40 plus 10 plus 90 for the bid, that's less than 50 cents a day to do business on public right-of-way commercially, and I was going to say, that actually doesn't sound that bad to me. I love your industry, and I'm a customer of your industry, but I also want what's fair. And
Right.
50 cents a day to do business with some of the volume you can do, that seemed pretty reasonable. So I guess,
We're
Back to
still
your-
on the motion, which is to defer
yeah,
it from.
which I guess it's more complicated than it sounded, so I guess
Yes.
I'll end with, I'd support that.
Councilman Snyder?
So I'm kind of ambivalent about the motion. I would rather pass something tonight, maybe holding in abeyance a few parts that council doesn't have unanimity about. But, this is the first of many of these types of discussions we're going to have here. We have what I think is great, the food truck industry, which is a disruptive force. And when I use the word disruptive, I mean it in the most complimentary way. It means innovative. It means business changing. And we have to figure out how to balance that with existing businesses, in this case, bricks and mortar restaurants. We got another conversation already ongoing about Airbnb and existing hotels and bed and breakfasts. And we're going to have another one coming about Uber, Lyft, sidecar, and taxi cabs industries. And at their heart, they're all about the same thing, which is how do we balance a new disruptive force in the business industry with an existing business model. Our job at the city is not to pick winners and losers in those sorts of situations. It's to make sure that the laws of the city of Spokane are applied in an equitable way so that we are not allowing us to adversely advantage one business model over another. We want to make sure that we are trying to be even-handed and allowing everybody to have a level playing field. The gentleman pointed out that the goal is to make food trucks flourish while protecting public health, and that's definitely the goal. But the other goal is to also protect those existing businesses so they're not unfairly disadvantaged by food trucks. And to me, that's an important goal here. There are a lot of restaurants downtown that could be adversely affected if a food truck was allowed to park all day right in front of their business and have a short circuit with less regulation and less cost to get a hold of the same customer base. To me, that's just a basic fairness issue, and it's why I've pushed Andrew to continue to work on this. And well, we've asked as a council, okay, where's this policy? We've been working on it for a while, and I think we need to get something on the books, because obviously our city code doesn't anticipate this, and we haven't done a good job of dealing with it. And we want to come up with good policy. I think most of what we have before us today, to me, is a good start, is a good policy, a good place to jump off from. Not that it'll be perfect, and sure it will need changes, but personally, I'd rather start from something rather than nothing so that we can come to what is actually the crux of the problem and the main objections.
So you're speaking against the motion?
I am speaking against the motion. And I also want to commend the food truck folks for forming an association that allows us a better opportunity to deal with common interests. instead of people all approaching us individually. If you have come to an agreement on certain aspects and you're all united on that, that makes it a lot easier for us to actually come up with appropriate policy. So I appreciate that. But I guess I'm speaking against the motion. I'd rather have us go forward with something. I will support the process if the motion succeeds in hopes that we can get a better result with as many stakeholders as possible in the room and participating.
Anybody else to the motion, speaking about the motion? Candace, are you online? No, we lost Candace. All right. Oh, she's there. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, nice work.
She would have necessitated her.
All right, so there's a motion on the table to defer this for 1 month. All those in favor of deferral for 1 month, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.